Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are tuning in from. My name is Damian Borba. I work on the strategic development team. And today we have another XD Enterprise Live here. And this is really for you guys. So make sure you ask questions. You make this super interactive. And to run the show today, I'd like to invite my friend Katie. Katie, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome. Take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Damian. Welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. Thursday, woo! I see we've got people in the chat from all the way from Sweden to Texas to New Mexico. So thanks for joining us. Very international crowd going on right there. So we appreciate your time today. Super exciting episode. I can't wait to get started, but we're going to do a quick overview of what is XD like we do every week. So, but first, I want to introduce my team here. So I've got my team of strategic development managers for XD. Wave, you guys. Hi, everyone. So we've got Matthew and Zach in the chat. We got Colleen in chats, Jamie, Leah will be answering all your questions. And we've got some special guests today. So let's get started. We do these every week, every Thursday, where we talk about all tips and tricks in XD, best practices, and we hear from industry professionals. So if you're unfamiliar with XD, it's a prototyping, design, and share platform for designing engaging user experiences. It's part of the Adobe ecosystem. And throughout this today's session, you're going to see a link that I'm going to remind you guys about that survey if you can fill that out for your chance to win a year of free Creative Cloud. I believe we're going to announce that winner actually next month. So be sure you check out that survey link and fill that out for us. We've been getting a lot of questions too about, virtual events and how you can kind of learn more about Adobe XD. So if you're interested, check out letsxd.com. letsxd.com/events rather has a huge list of virtual events we're running all the time. I think you can find one for every week. So definitely check that out if you want kind of a deeper dive or you're looking for a specific subject matter in XD. So today's topic's really exciting. I can't introduce the topic without sharing my screen. So I'm just going to give a quick share, and I would like Hoyle or someone on my team to let me know they can see this beautiful pink screen. Anyone?
Yes.
Looks good.
Sweet. So today, big topic here. We're going to be talking about presentations in XD. Yeah. So I made a quick little presentation here, and we're going to be hearing from Olivia and Meg from Kohl's, one of our favorite brands, and then Hoyle from the Adobe XD PM team is actually going to show us something he's created in XD for presentation purposes. So because you can design, prototype, and share in Adobe XD, you can also, it's a great tool for pitch decks, presentations, or reports, which we're going to kind of talk to Olivia and Meg about. And just to wrap up this little presentation I put together, I was using Auto Animate, I was using some cool states and hovers in XD. Check out letsxd.com if you need some tips and tricks for those. And we're going to hear from Olivia and Meg how they use some of those tricks as well. This presentation I put together, it's not on brand for Adobe, right? I actually was inspired by some Wes Anderson. I'm a big Wes Anderson fan. So I went to Adobe Color and grabbed some a Wes Anderson color palette. And I just want to give a shout out to the Adobe Color team, because when you visit their website, you'll see that they now have kind of tools to help you pick an accessible color palette. And then all my photos are from Adobe Stock, except for my, featured guests. They're real people. But we have Adobe Stock for any kind of photography needs you need in these presentations as well. But yeah, that's really it for me. I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to pass it on to our guests. So Olivia and Meg, if you can come off mute and we can see you. How's it going? Say hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I'll introduce myself first. My name is Olivia Miller, and I am the Trend Concept Associate for Women's Apparel, Accessories, and Footwear at Kohl's. So just a little bit about me. I am currently in Brooklyn. It's very sunny today. I've been here throughout the quarantine. I've been at Kohl's for about the last 2 years and have been working as a trend forecaster for about 4.5 years now. My background is actually in textile design. I have a BFA in fibers from the Savannah College of Art and Design. So everything kind of comes together and connects. Meg and I both kind of had winding paths as to how we got into trend. but my role on the team really focuses on creating the conceptual content for primarily our designers and other teams. So really kind of taking a look at what's happening in the fashion world and in the world around us in those adjacent industries, and taking that information and synthesizing it and translating it in a way that makes sense for the Kohl's customer. So really kind of digging into the research on things like what are the important colors, prints, fabrics, silhouettes across apparel, accessories, and footwear. And then taking all of that research that we do and packaging it using XD in a way that is both inspiring and editorial, but also really easy to digest and actionable for our teams.
And then I'm Meg Mattil. I'm the Trend Insights Assistant. So I work on the Insights half of our team. I've been at Kohl's for about 2 years as well. And similar to Olivia, had kind of a winding path into trend, but have also worked in trend for consumer product goods and beauty and food and bev, and then found my way into apparel, which has been really fun, and being able to integrate data, which is what our branch of the team does. So we help support those forecasts and concepts with consumer mindsets and then data visualization that kind of triangulates our internal resources with our external, and then also with our different services and partners. And then I also have a fine arts background. So I got a BA in sculpture from Yale and then found trend shortly after that. So it's kind of all connected and led me into this really interesting data visualization space.
I know Meg and I were talking before this, and we were just like, we would have never thought that like two fine art kids would be going on in a team to talk about like a platform like this. But we think it's also really cool that, you know, our backgrounds aren't in like graphic design or UX, that we've picked up some of those skills along the way. And obviously a lot of that's facilitated by using a program like XD, but we're super excited to be here today.
Yeah. And I think, you know, what you mentioned about, you know, surprising using this platform and everything like that. I mean, you are talking to probably a bigger audience of UX and designers, but, you know, I don't think there's any of us in that chat room that hasn't had to create some sort of pitch deck or report or some kind of presentation of their own work. So I'm super excited to kind of learn from you guys, you know, what it's been like, what your process has been like, and, you know, how did you even tap into XD, and what's it been like for you?
Totally. So we started with primarily, I think a lot of people relate to this, using Photoshop and even more so InDesign. Our company is really print focused in terms of our reporting for a long time. So that was our primary platform. And it's really great for visuals. It's really great for the kind of decks we've been doing in the past. But I think people on our team are saying, you know, is there a way we can be more dynamic? Is there a way we can be more streamlined? And that's what really led us to XD. And our old process was definitely a little more rigid, I'd say. Like we had to kind of, you know, package things and figure out ways to transfer documents, and especially working remotely. We've been really grateful that, you know, XD has been kind of a lifesaver in that. But InDesign was definitely serving a really great purpose for our team in terms of being able to have those really impactful visuals. But I think there were some hiccups with trying to work collaboratively and to iterate things in multiple formats.
Yeah, gotcha. Anything, Olivia?
Yeah, I mean, we, you know, in both of the trend roles that I've had, like the teams I've worked on have used InDesign. Like Meg said, it's really great for creating printed content, but it can be really static in that way and for us, our reports, you know, we report throughout the year on seasonal reports as well as smaller reports. So everything from a really like meaty report on everything you need to know for like the spring season to sort of a one-page kind of quick and dirty like runway recap. So we really had a broad scope in the type of content we were delivering, but we were finding with some of our bigger deliverables, the presentations were, like I said, they're pretty hefty. It's a lot of information. You're looking at lots of different categories and different components that sort of speak to trend, as well as, you know, at Kohl's, our team services so many different brands. We're not kind of just working with one specific aesthetic. We have lots and lots of different brands with different brand profiles and different aesthetics. So you kind of have to make your information speak to everyone. And in doing that, sometimes with InDesign, the reports were large. And so it's like, how do you kind of keep people interested, keep people's attention when you do have a lot of content to get through? So that was something we were really facing with InDesign. It was just like, it's beautiful and it's informational, but like, how do we make it better and make it more engaging and inspiring?
Yeah, and of course, we love InDesign. They're part of the family. So, what's been kind of, yeah,
No.
exactly. What's been the most helpful thing going from InDesign to XD, or what was some of the was there a learning curve? Can you kind of talk about the process of trying out a new tool and what that was like for you guys, and also the impact it made on people who kind of ingested these reports as well?
Yeah, so there was definitely a learning curve. So for us, everyone was pretty familiar with InDesign, and we kind of had our ways of working that worked for us. But when we were sort of starting to explore using Adobe XD, it definitely had its challenges. Again, for Meg and I, we're not trained graphic designers or UX designers, so it was a whole new program to kind of learn the ins and outs of. One thing I will say that felt like sort of this aha moment was in shifting to XD, there was sort of this moment where we were able to kind of break the handcuffs that we had on just different sort of rules we had or ways we formatted things that we felt like we kind of had to do because it was in InDesign or it was going to be printed. So that was really something where even it just sort of gave us this opportunity to be okay, we have this new platform, what could our reports look like? If they don't have to look like what they did before, how could we reinvent them? How can we reinvent how we show color, how we show mood, how we speak to it? And that in and of itself was really exciting. It felt like we had a lot of breakthroughs, in just kind of taking our reports to the next level. I would say we were all kind of coming in with different levels of experience and sort of kind of adopting at different rates. But I think what was so great about XD was it was something that we were all kind of able to learn relatively quickly. We really only started partnering, for everyone who's listening, with the Adobe team back in maybe December. So it's been a pretty quick adoption, and we presented our first sort of full formal presentation to our teams in January. So it was a pretty fast process, but I think everyone, we worked through kind of the hurdles and sort of just navigating, learning a new program. And it's been really fruitful for us. We've seen a lot of really great response to our new reports. Kind of some of the key ways they're different is now, we love to make things scroll. So in our reports, kind of utilizing artboards to kind of extend them so that they're scrollable, using hover states, different things, just to kind of add a little bit of that kind of interactive.
Extending your story even, of the concept of the trend. Very cool.
Totally. And something we always kind of struggled with previously was not all trends or items or prints or whatever have the same kind of weight of importance. But in our previous formats, everything was laid out in a very kind of repetitive static way where it's you have the same number of call outs per page so that the formatting looks even. But here, with being able to do different scrolling or just changing formats up to show that this fabric is more important because this image is bigger and there's more real estate for this idea than there is for this one, it helps us sort of give things a different sense of weight and importance, which is kind of difficult to do when you're really sticking to a really kind of rigid format.
Sure. So you're kind of limited. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. And then Meg, I kind of wanted to ask you, what's been some of your favorite features in XD that helped you kind of add some interactions or tell the story a bit better? Anything come to mind?
So I think top of mind is the data integration abilities with the plugins, because that was something where, speaking to what Olivia said about it being very static in InDesign, that was, I think the data insights branch of our team has grown with our adoption of this new tool and understanding, how we can put more data in our reports in a way that people can really digest instead of just, copy and pasting pivot charts and things that people aren't quite going to be able to digest as quickly, and making things really streamlined. So I love using Dizzy charts in particular. Shout out to them. That's one of my favorites when creating sort of assortment mixes or helping people understand, percent to totals. It's just a really quick and easy way to communicate that. And I think I've also loved the ability of the wiring systems to literally create click-throughs. You're always asked, can you guys double click into this and really dive in? Well, it's so hard to fit that, as Olivia said, on one page when, someone running to a meeting doesn't have time to read 80 pages about t-shirts or whatever it is. So it's lovely to be able to sit there and give them kind of an interactive experience. They can peel away the layers as needed. And I think it really makes the reporting more consumer centric. Thinking of, our internal teams as our clients, like it kind of gives them a little bit more power in, understanding the information and what they need and how they utilize it.
That's awesome. And what's kind of been the sentiment or the feedback from others at your company? Because I'm sure this was kind of a new process for them as well, not getting a PDF.
We had a lot of workarounds with understanding how to make printability, definitely, as I think Olivia can confirm, something that people have had trouble walking away from. What I love is that, they do understand how to navigate the interactive presentations, but then it's not all or nothing, right? The artboard kind of systemization makes it really easy to organize and select, what are we going to export? We can turn things into PDFs very quickly. For how large the files are, we're really impressed by how, fluid that experience has been, and being able to still post things in PDF form if that's the preference. So we have a lot more flexibility than we did before to kind of ebb and flow, especially working remotely. I think there's been a lot of kind of mixed reviews on how people want their information because everyone's trying to do everything from home.
Yes. Oh, good point. Any last bit of advice for people who maybe want to start trying XD for presentations? I mean, anything you can offer to our listeners?
I would say don't be afraid. I think, the first time I opened XD, it's kind of it's like that dauntingness of the blank page. But I think that it was really helpful. Obviously, we partnered with Caitlin and got her help so much and kind of with our onboarding process. But also the program is very intuitive. Like as you're going through it, it's sort of like if I'm going to type in text and I click the text tool, my whole sidebar becomes all of my text options. If I'm resizing an image, that changes. So it kind of responds and works with you in that way. That's really helpful. And I think for us, it was really about what are the things that we need to achieve in creating this presentation? What information is the most important? And then how do we leverage the features to kind of help amplify that? Like, we're not necessarily using all of the bells and whistles that we know XD can do because it does still have to be printable.
You're using them pretty well. I got to interrupt. I mean, I've seen what you guys have done. You got the hovers, you got the states.
We do have hover states. We put in guides and that was something that I think was really helpful for people as they're navigating, is being like, click here to go to the next one, scroll here, go back, things like that. So I think just getting in and trying it and playing around with the features, and there's so many different resources to help and sort of facilitate the learning. Just don't be scared.
All right, Meg, anything? And then, in the chat, if you guys have questions for Meg and Olivia, they're going to be sticking around after Hoyle's presentation. So go ahead, Meg, sorry.
Oh, you're good. I would just say back to what we said earlier, the iterating. It goes back to that old art school mentality, but make 5 versions of it and just drag it to the side. I've come up with some of my best templates and formats and best practices just by doing that. And the fact that remembering, as I'm learning this new tool, just the acceleration of the time it takes with the really intuitive kind of auto formatting is amazing. So just to lean in and keep trying weird stuff.
Love it. Love that art. I went to art school too, so I'm totally with you there. All right, girls, thank you so much. Please stay on. I'm going to ask Hoyle now to unmute and come on and show us all these cool features that you guys kind of just mentioned. So Hoyle, feel free to take it away and introduce yourself.
Thanks,
please.
Caitlin.
Yep, say who you are.
Hey everyone, my name is Hoyle. I'm a product manager for the XD team. I've worked on the XD team coming up on 3 years now. I've been a part of Adobe for coming up on 5 years. A little bit about me, I kind of got into this entire space as a result of going to a public governor's school growing up. I studied technology, but one of my minors was actually in graphic design. And so super similar background to the wonderful designers that you just heard from. I remember, being just so kind of frustrated, but also enamored with, taking a sheet of letters printed with Helvetica and tracing them, right? I think we've all done that at some point in learning design. But I've worked on, as a part of the product management training for XD, I sort of, work with customers and try and figure out what is it that we really need to make in order to solve their problems and fit their needs. And so I've worked on just about all the different parts of the product, be it design systems, the mobile applications. So happy to follow up with any of you and discuss any questions that you might have. In terms of today, what I'm going to be showing is a presentation that I made about a year and a half ago. So we have a conference every single around the October-November timeframe of every year called Adobe Max. It's sort of our large creativity conference. It's 16,000 people in Southern California every single year. And what I'm showing you today is a presentation that I made for what was called a UX Leader Summit at the Adobe Max conference. So what this was customers that we had worked with, throughout the course of the year. We wanted a chance to bring our community that we get to interact with every single day together in person, and really have an opportunity for everyone to get together and hear from the product team and give input into what it is that they'd like to be built as a part of the future of the product. So without further ado, the kind of funny thing was before I show this, the next animation I'm going to show is actually just 2 artboards. I'll hit the play button here on the upper right hand corner. And we had this animation for sort of this XD logo bursting in and out, playing on a loop as people were sort of coming in and finding their seats. The really awesome part about XD is the fact that when you go and prototype, we try and take those things that are cumbersome and take multiple steps and just condense it down into 1 or 2. And we try and also make things really simple in the process. So the way that this animation got created is actually all of these little baubles and these circles here have an individual name in the layers panel. And so all that was happening was that I was changing the position of these circles to inform the sort of XD logo. So I'll walk through this presentation, and I'll take a step back at times and talk a little bit about how some of these animations were made. So, this event was really targeted towards North America, and we had people, from all around, right? You can see some concentrations in New York metropolitan area, the SF Bay Area, and Southern California. We sent out a survey ahead of time and asked the folks what their level of experience as it came to XD was. We had some fairly experienced users, and we really wanted to make the most out of their time, right? So asked them what were the type of things that they were interested in learning about and discussing more about with the product team. And as you can see, there are some of them here. In terms of some of the companies that were represented, great representation of a bunch of companies from across the board. And then we told a little bit about the story of XD. And this is actually now even easier to create as a part of the anchor links feature that we were just talking about earlier. But I'll talk a little bit about the story of XD. So it was started way back in about 2015 with a small group, small team, as a part of a project. And for those of you who have used Fireworks before, the original code name of XD was actually Sparkler. So a sort of tilt of the hat to that name. And the original mission was to help design at the speed of thought. As Meg and Olivia mentioned, we wanted XD to be super simple and intuitive, and just really easy. We wanted the UI to get out of your way so you can focus on what it is that you actually want to be doing. And the original sort of mission of XD was to design mobile applications super fast, from storyboarding to production-ready artwork. And presentations is a huge part of that, right? And some of the original UI. This is some of the original UI for, or concept of the UI for prototyping, actually. So we have this pop-up sort of prototyping screen. And then we went into early public beta with it. It was called Project Comet. You can see Damien here on the right-hand side, who started off this live stream. This is part of the European tour that the company did, going around with customers and showing them and getting feedback on the early versions. And as you can see, the team grew a little bit more since then, right? And I remember this was at Adobe Max, the conference I was talking about, live on stage where it was unveiled for the first time. Lots of great press. And we actually won an Innovation by Design award then from Fast Company, who was quoted in saying that this was, the project comment at the time was a uniquely nimble and transparent approach from an industry behemoth. And then XD came out into beta in April of 2017. Right there you can see one of our product managers and our VP of XD demoing XD live on the Mac stage. We had this really awesome concept at conferences. Remember those when those used to be a thing? Called waffles and wireframes. And it was actually, we had waffle makers with an XD logo that was ingrained into it, and we would hand them out at conferences. It was pretty awesome. And this was our 1.0 launch party. This was, as you can see, the team grew more and more. You can see my head kind of there in the background. And it's been quite a journey. So that's kind of led to us to where we are today. In terms of sort of what we believe, the combination of design, product, and engineering, great tools are made at the very intersection of all of those. In terms of where our team is based, there's some regional hubs, but we also have a large distributed workforce. Regional hubs being San Francisco and New York primarily, so also some folks in Seattle, as well as in Bucharest in Romania and Bangalore in India. So quite literally, there is somebody working on XD, around the clock, 24/7, which is pretty cool. In terms of our mission back then, we were looking to be the design collaboration platform for experience design and production. That was across all of these different surfaces and accounted for use cases that designers were having to design for today and also tomorrow. I love this next animation here, which is where the world kind of tilts. It's different layers, and all we've done is just rotated them, and they're stacked on top of each other. It creates a pretty cool effect. And this is just us talking a little bit about some of the tenets of XD. And then, so that was a lot, but I just wanted to kind of zoom out and show you a little bit of how some of these things were created. We'll go into this world diagram here. This one was one of my favorite animations to actually create because all it was a vector map that was then transposed on top of a layer mask. And so I just auto-animated from one artboard to another with a small time duration, and had these sort of geo tags pop up, right? And all these things is auto-animate. So as I tapped, I had the sort of the degree of the radial gradient tilt a little bit to simulate sunlight, and then I had the vectors on the map move a little bit more. As you can see, it's sort of in the mask group, right? And then going to this artboard where the Bucharest and the Bangalore. And then in terms of sort of how the transition that I pointed out, the pretty cool one was that it was just a rotation, and these clouds in the background are all on different layers and they're mask groups. So you could just see that they were all just sort of rotating in different directions. I'll play this one back because I think this is one of my favorite animations for the presentation. So pretty nifty. And so
very slick.
Very slick. So this is all just visual things, but I really want to talk about this is a small presentation that I did where I talked about how we go about building a feature. And I think this is where the presentation piece of XD comes really in play, right? A lot of the things that we talked about were just really nice, visually appealing things. But I want to dive into this particular bit because I think it really illustrates how XD can be used to tell a story, right? And so this was, us trying to expose our own product design and creation process to customers. We, have really believed in transparency and openness with everything that we do, and it's something. XD is a tool that's created by the community for the community. And this particular feature that we released back then is just like that. Right? So this was. Originally we were talking about the concept of adaptive and responsive design, right? So back in the day, you would have if you were trying to design the top bar of an iPhone screen, right? If you wanted to sort of adapt that to an iPad background, you'd grab both of the handles on the rotate and you'd stretch that out, right? And back then, XD did a regular sort of constrained transform, and you can see some of the logos get stretched out, the iconography gets stretched out. Things aren't exactly where they're in place, and it's not exactly the ideal scenario, right? What you probably want to happen is something more like the below. And so, what we did was we actually added a feature called responsive resize into XD. And what responsive resize did was, at the time of your resizing, it took a look at your design, and based on a set of heuristics, we determined, that, when you're looking at design, there's sort of behaviors that should happen, right? This bar at the bottom should always be tied to the bottom of the screen. The stuff that's all centered should stay centered. And so as you're actually resizing, right, you can kind of see the behavior would go and mimic something that you would like to have as a part of your desktop or your iPad experience, right? So a little bit about how we got there. Everything starts with the community and the community in mind. A big part of that about being transparent is we have a service that we use called User Voice. And so User Voice is basically like Reddit, but for feature requests. And you can see this was one of the top most voted requests at the time. And not only was it top voted, but it also had... Oh, wire got disconnected. Oopsies. Okay. So it had a lot of feature requests and a lot of votes. And we took there, we read all through it. We also spoke with customers and talked a lot about what it is that they were looking for when solving for this workflow. And so what we found from user voice and from talking with customers is that there's really a sentiment from our customers that there's really no sign of features to support adaptive or responsive design. And this is something that we were hearing a lot as a major pain point. One of the things that we always strive to do is fully understand the problem before diving into a solution. And so one of that starts with use cases. What are people actually trying to do? And as it turns out, they were trying to take, these sort of small modular components and resize them and really keep that relational relationship, right? Same thing with these forms in that top nav bar that you can see. And here as an example with a chat bubble as well, right? So we went out, talked to more customers, and really dug into their pain points. And competitive landscape at the time was that, everybody was sort of using the system of constraints where you had to sort of hit these little dials in order to figure out what things you wanted to get pinned where. And when we really talked with customers, again, this is part of fully understanding the problem before diving into the solution, we found that only 1 in 5 designers actually used constraints. And for those that did, it was really useful. You could lock in your design intent, work up front instead of working later. But more than it was the only tool that was available, right? And so for the 4 out of 5 people that never used this feature, they didn't know that it existed. They found it was hard to learn. There was lots of trial and error. It was really tedious to set up. And, we all have jobs, right? And there's no time to sort of, keep up and learn all of these new things that are coming out in the world, right? And so what we wanted to do was take something that was a little bit cumbersome and try and simplify it. And so the principles that we came up with was that it has to be easy enough to use daily. It has to eliminate more work than it generates. And it also has to allow us to systemically scale for some of the other features that we all wanted to do in the future. And so, what we found, moreover, was that UX designers, more than any other types of designers, are always resizing things. And so, what we created was just better resize rules by default. Because by virtue of what a designer has already created as part of their design, they've already created a set of alignments and relationships. They have things that are vertically centered. They have things that are aligned to the same margin and have similar padding. And so we just use that information to make the resizing more accurate and try and preserve some of the relationships that they set up as a part of their designs to begin with. An example of eliminating more work than it generates means that we were okay if you did something and things weren't necessarily perfect. Like in this case, these three, the first name and the last name boxes didn't resize. We wanted to do 80% of the work for you, so that you can, recuperate that and just go in and do minor fixes. We weren't aiming for perfection. We tested it out internally with members of our own design team, as well as one of the best parts about having working on design tool at Adobe is that there's a huge organization of designers that are always sort of our beta subjects and are always very opinionated and give us super great feedback. Tested it with a bunch of customers, and then sort of what we ended up with was this little feature where you could go in, just resize things, just work. If things didn't necessarily work, you could go in and there's an auto and a manual mode. And always go from auto to the manual mode, set the relationships that you'd like, and have that work. So that was sort of the end of the presentation. But I think just taking a step back, one of my favorite sort of slides, if you want to call it, that I've ever designed for XD is probably these, right? Because I think it just being able to sort of stagger and create these animations in order for that sort of gradual reduction and unveiling of the details really helps to tell the story and the intent behind something, right? And all these slides is just a series of different artboards that are auto-animated from one artboard to the next with different positioning and some tricks with opacity. We are working on some improvements for making this even easier in the future and reducing the quantity of artboards. But this was sort of best practices at the time. And as you can see, none of these slides are particularly complicated. We really believe that for folks that may have not had formal training as it relates to motion graphics design, that we wanted to make it easy for them too. I mean, I certainly, despite working at Adobe, don't really know how to use After Effects, and that was what you had to use in order to achieve these types of effects before. And so we really wanted to lower that barrier to entry and allow for really creative and flexible expression when it came to both screen design and UI UX design and micro interactions, but also for presentation purposes. Here on the XD team, we use XD to design and also to present all of our work. And so, it's been really great to sort of be able to use a tool that you get to help create, because it helps us, really push the boundaries of what it's able to do. I'll stop there. Are there any questions?
Cool. Yeah, let's open it up for questions. And there you guys have it. Someone on the XD team using XD for presentations. And thank you so much, Hoyle. Let's check in with some of our chat managers. And I'll ask Olivia and Meg, to come back on and unmute yourself. Any questions out there, Jamie or Zach or Matt or Leah?
Hi. Jamie here.
Hi.
A lot of people were really excited to see XD as a use case for presentations. They had not thought of doing that before. So there was lots of questions on how did they determine that this was even something you could do in XD? Like was this an accident, or was XD designed to be a presentation tool? They're just kind of curious the backstory, and maybe Hoyle, I don't know if you can speak to that since you've been on the team, but we did hear a little bit from Coles on what the decision making was to switch to XD for this purpose.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about the history of it. I mean, I think a huge part about design is not just about creating the experience, but also telling the story and the decisions behind something, right? So I think for XD, the original intent was for it to be design, prototype, and share. And though it was originally designed for screen design, and that's still the primary use case, there are lots of functionalities and efficiencies that you can use to have XD as a screen design tool. We have co-editing in XD, where multiple people can collaborate on the same document at the same time. And I think personally for me, right, I think, we use Google Suite quite a lot, and I design a lot of my presentations in slides. And I think, for anyone that's ever done it, we've all, seen the frustration of coming from a design background and trying to design using PowerPoint or Google Slides, right? It's just not quite the same amount of fidelity and control and functionality. Right, exactly. So I think from someone who comes from a design background, right, it's a lot easier to use a tool that you use every single day for your production purposes, for creating the assets and telling that story to your users, but using that in such a way that you're communicating, internally to stakeholders as well.
Anything to add on that, Meg or Olivia? I think you guys kind of talked about it with the handcuffs. That was a great metaphor.
I would say I really love how well, I mentioned this before, and Illustrator speaks to XD on that note of, making things that are really compelling and interesting. I'm doing a lot of hand drawing some of my graphics and charts, and I think, I can really break the barriers on that with XD in a way I couldn't in other platforms, and I really enjoy the way those two programs speak together and what comes of that. So.
Jamie?
Sorry, I was responding to a chat. Is there a question for me?
Oh, no. Was there anything else from you?
Oh, no.
All good? Okay.
People are curious about learning more about XD and how to use it for presentations. I recommend everyone go to letsxd.com and learn how to use the features. Right.
We have XDI training sessions. So if you want professional, trainings by our XD experts, instructors, I should say, we'll throw some links in the chat there. Damien will probably show a little link there as well. Yeah. But yeah, I think that, I think this was a great session, and hopefully you guys kind of saw a new side of XD that you hadn't considered before, and we'll try this out for your next pitch presentation or, pitch or presentation, right? Or report. That's what I was trying to say. So, I just want to thank our guests, Hoyle, Meg, and Olivia for joining us today. And, back to you, Damien.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Again, just to close it out, if you are interested in XD training, you can request, if you're part of a big enterprise, you have a big team, we have this XDI program, and I will share the link again here so you can see, and then we can assign a very good XDI to help you there. And we also have the survey, and I'll share the link here. So the plan is to get feedback so that we can improve the live stream every week. And then every month, we're going to give away 1 year of Creative Cloud all apps. So that's that. So with that, I think we're good. And we'll be back next week. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Talk soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Hey.